Now it's time for Saving People Queering Things, the part of the show.
The part of the show where Abigail says, "Welcome to Saving People Queering Things."
Hello and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the supernatural podcast where the car was really Dean's the whole time.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, amen. Poetry snaps to that. Today, in that car that was Dean's the whole time, we are pulling up to season 4, episode 3, In the Beginning.
I'm Noah. My pronouns are he, him. And today, my question I'd like to ask my co-hosts is if you went back in time and had the chance to interact with one of your grandparents or great-grandparents, what would you ask them?
Ooh, good question. I'm Abigail. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm assuming, Noah, you mean like someone you didn't get a chance to meet.
Yeah, someone you didn't get a chance to interact with in your young adult life.
Yeah, I would love to have met, I did meet one of my great-grandparents, but I was 2 or 3 when he died, so I don't remember him. Like, I wasn't old enough to ask any questions, but he fought in World War II, but in Asia, in India, Pakistan, like he was in one of those regiments, and it's just a piece of my history like I don't know much about.
Mm-hmm.
And he also was just a very interesting, strange person. He had a very, very big personality. I own the chair I sit on for podcasting is actually was his favorite chair when he would when I was a baby, and he only visited a couple of times when I was a baby because he lived in the UK at that point in his life. But he would he had his cane. He would go around slamming he didn't really need the cane, apparently, according to stories. He just liked to use it for emphasis, which, I mean, he probably did need it to some extent. I don't actually know because
he needed emphasis in his life, clearly.
Yeah. He liked to point it at people aggressively, apparently.
Love that.
I see. Yeah. He seems like he was quite a character. There's a city not far away from where I grew up that's called Chilliwack, and he would always call it Chilliwack. Which
that's wholesome.
So when we were kids, that's what we always would joke and call it, because that was the story my parents told of him visiting and being like, what's this Chilliwack? Anyway,
that's beautiful.
I would think I would like to ask him about his experiences during the war, because I think that would be really, really interesting, and just his experiences he grew up in India, and
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm Elayna. My pronouns are she, they. And as a tie-in to what you just said about grandparents mispronouncing, the one grandfather I did know and love, his name was Charlie, and he loved trains, obsessively, trains and trams and all that, and he collected them. And so I used to think that trolley was pronounced Charlie, and I thought it was because he invented them when I was very
That's
very little.
So cute.
Yes.
So yeah, but if I could go back and meet a grandparent that I never met, I never unfortunately got to meet either of my dad's parents because they had both passed before my mom even met him. But I know that apparently my grandmother on that side was a college English professor. And
Ooh.
So my mom was not a reader at all. She just didn't enjoy reading. She wasn't a book person, but books are my entire existence. And so I would just love to have had a chat with this allegedly very literary grandmother that I apparently have.
Where you got it from. It's what's been passed down to you.
Yeah, because my dad was big into Lord of the Rings, and he was really into Star Wars. So he's where I get a lot of my bookish, nerdy tendencies from. But because I was never very close with him, I didn't get to know him very well. And again, never met the grandparents. So I would love to have some tea with my grandmother that I never met and find out what her favorite book is and see where she got that from. I think that would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Noah?
I would have to go with my mom's mom. Passed about a decade and a half ago. And I was too young to spend a lot of quality time with her. It'd be cool to go back and get to hang out with her and see a little bit of what inspired my mom and my aunt to become who they are. And I don't know, it'd be a good time for sure. I have a lot of questions about how did you handle them as kids? Oh my God, they're so annoying now. I'm just kidding.
Your mom and your aunt are characters. So,
they're such characters.
So seeing someone
much.
Who influenced their development would be fascinating.
Yeah, a mix of the both of them would be chaotic as hell, but unstoppable.
Love that.
Well, now that you've met your hosts, it's time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far. First up, Abigail's going to recap our show so far. Are you ready, Abigail?
I think that I am. I only have to recap like 3 episodes of this season. So
at this point, it's pretty easy. You've got about 6 or 7 episodes till it starts getting really tough.
Yeah.
But let me know when you're ready and I will count you in.
I am ready.
Perfect. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Dean went to hell, was in hell for a really long time, 4 months, and then he gets raised by an angel, but Dean's like, I don't know if it's an angel. Is it an angel? This angel's name is Cass. Sam is like, yay, angels and God. And Dean's like, hell no. And then there is a seal that's broken, which is the first of one to raise Lucifer. A bunch of ghosts come back to kind of haunt them, that people they couldn't save. And Dean is still very skeptical about the whole concept of angels.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Burner. Beautiful.
That was pretty smooth. That was pretty smooth. You got everything you needed to.
Pretty smooth.
And we're all caught up. Road so far. Love it. Now, as far as this episode, Elayna, are you ready to give us your rendition of the
I
events?
think so. I'm going to do my best.
A lot of stuff in this episode.
There is, and I'm so afraid that I'm going to forget every important thing.
It's okay. We'll talk about all of the things after you recap it. So.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to give you the best rundown that I can. Count me in whenever. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so the episode starts with Sam being all sneaky sneaks, and he goes away and does something with Ruby, and we don't know what's really going on. And then Cass shows up in Dean's bed because that's foreshadowing. And so then he sends him back to the future, and he has this very, weird moment with his dad in the diner. He ends up convincing his dad in the past to get the car that he's supposed to have, which is the Impala. And then he finds out his mom's a hunter, and then they have to figure out this hunt with the yellow-eyed demon, and Mary ends up doing a thing and she kills him. Oh, fuck. I lost it. Completely spiraled at the end.
She kills.
She doesn't kill anybody.
Well,
I'm so sorry for the sheer brain collapse that occurred at the end of that.
You know what? You got the Dean convinces his dad to buy Baby, which did take you 20 seconds to get to, and then the rest was like in the last 10 seconds, but it was kind of great. I was in for it.
I'm so sorry the end was a disaster, but you know what?
That's basically the show, right?
It's now time for us to pick some music to accompany us on our journey for today. We're going to be collecting songs to create a season 4 mixtape, and this is what we have for this week. Abigail, you want to take us away?
Yes. So the song I have is King by Florence and the Machine. And I chose this song. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Beth from Driver Picks the Podcast, I was talking to her about this song, and she was like, this song is really, really Mary coded. And I couldn't get that out of my brain when I kept hearing this song. And so I think it really suits. It's a song all about it's about gender, and it's about expectations, and it's about not fitting in the roles that you want to fit, but also don't want to fit. It's a gorgeous song, and I think it really works with a Mary's journey in this episode. So yeah. King by Florence and the Machine.
Love it.
I went with Backbone by Nako and Medicine for the People. It's a very strong, powerful track. It talks about his history and where he comes from, and how that's the backbone of his belief and drive in life. And it's a wholesome song for this episode, because it's all about Dean going back and getting in touch with his roots, that he didn't even realize he had. I like it. It's a good fit.
Nice.
Elayna, what about you?
My pick for this week is a little non-traditional, but what I really enjoy about this episode, it is one of the few times where we get to see John and Mary very adorably in love with each other. And I usually spend most of my time wanting to punch John Winchester in the face.
Don't worry, I'm going to attempt to convince you that should still be the case in this episode.
I mean, it should, yeah, it probably will. But as I was scrolling through my playlist, I came across the song that I really enjoy, "Dreaming of You" by Selena, and I just feel like that song very much captures their vibe as a couple, just they're dreaming of each other and wanting this life that we don't know if they're going to get to have. And I don't know, I felt like I would go with that softer, gentler song for the two of them, because I feel like their relationship is complicated and intense, and this is one of the few times where we get to see moments of softness with them. So
good choice.
Good choice.
So now that we've got our mixtape playing, it is time for the hunt of the week. And let's start our discussion on today's episode in the beginning through the theme of ignorance. Elayna, do you have a place you want to start with this episode?
Yeah, so I thought it would be helpful before we actually dig into discussion if we just kind of take a look at the definition of ignorance to see how it is that it relates to this episode. So the definition that we have here in the doc is that ignorance is a lack of knowledge or information. And I feel like that's actually a really good theme for this particular episode because Dean is finding out all of these things about his family that he was completely ignorant of because he didn't grow up with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of I think the most obvious angle for where ignorance is a huge, huge part of this episode.
I mean, everyone in this episode is ignorant in some way. Dean is ignorant of his family's past. Mary and Samuel and Deanna are ignorant of the scope of what the demon is planning and
that they're dealing with their grandson.
And that they're dealing with their grandson. The angels are ignorant of what Azazel's plans for Sam and the special children are. Dean is ignorant of what Sam is doing.
Yeah.
There's so much ignorance happening in this episode. Every character is. And Sam is ignorant of what's happening to Dean at this moment. So
the whole time.
Which, can we talk about, the fact that's a little bit of a bitter pill when Cass is he's not looking for you.
Yeah, he said.
That part always punches me in the gut.
It's a signifier that things have changed between them since Dean has been in hell.
Yeah.
Sam is not the same as Sam was before Dean went to hell.
He's got different priorities now because Dean has been dead, so he wasn't really on the list.
And when he the eagerness with which he reacts to Ruby when she's are you ready? When they get in the car at the beginning, he's just absolutely, or what, I forget exactly the word that he says, but it's it's a very enthusiastic yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's very much so ready. Yeah, could not get out of there fast enough.
Was waiting for Dean to fall asleep.
We're building towards some kind of reveal with Sam, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm curious, Noah, what you think that reveal might be.
I have no clue. He's got significant powers of some sort, and I'm waiting to see when he talks about how he developed those, what he's using them for specifically. There's some gray area in the 4 months when Dean was gone that we don't really know what Sam was up to. I don't really know what Sam was up to.
Would you say that you're ignorant of what Sam is up to?
I would be ignorant of that.
I'm sorry, I'll see myself out.
One thing the show is kind of ignorant of, in not so much the characters, but the show itself, they kind of just didn't care about the time travel rules. They said, we can bend it if we need to sometimes, but that's really all they said. So
yeah,
they definitely don't set up any kind of guidelines for how this works. And even the angels, Cass says to Dean at the beginning, he's you have to stop it. But he's straight up lying because there's no way it could be stopped. And he says that at the end, he was actually, JK, we just sent you back so you would know.
Yeah, just so you would learn some stuff.
Yeah, which cold.
A question I have for you both is why do you think he tells him that he has to stop it? Why do you think that's the way that he frames it?
I think to make sure that he doesn't get concerned about time travel rules.
Yeah, I think it's that.
He mentions the DeLorean, Back to the Future, right? So huge reference there. Obviously, Dean's seen it. So they talk a whole lot about how messing with the past can affect your future and how make you cease to exist. And so maybe Dean doesn't want to, if he had gone back without that command, he may have been a little afraid to interact with John and Mary.
Yeah, a little more wary of his decisions, whereas Cass kind of gives him in some ways a free pass, kind of goes, you can you need to stop this. So Dean goes, okay, because that's what he would have wanted to do regardless, but he might have struggled with that decision more. And
logically.
Yeah, and now he doesn't have to.
You think it was because he needed that instruction so that he would engage?
Yeah.
Or at least so that he wouldn't question what might happen if he makes those choices. He would actually go full in and go, I can change this. Cass is giving him this illusion of free will, which is really interesting for Cass at this point, to be giving an illusion of something that he's then going to yank out and be actually, no.
The raw power that Castiel possesses to be able to just send someone back.
Listen.
And he clearly interacts and he makes changes to the timeline as it was, but always should have been made. Well, the changes were made before Dean was born.
Yeah.
And so they always had to have been made, but so he has impact through Castiel's teleportation to the
Yeah.
past, which is mind-boggling. So he
Yeah.
teleports him through space and time to the past to change stuff
That had to be changed.
that had to be changed.
Dean has to convince John to buy the car.
If he doesn't, then everything in the future is different and changed. It's a completely different show. There's a lot more drugs involved because they're in a minivan. VW van, oh yeah, they'd be chilling.
I mean, it's going to be implied. Actually, no, it's not going to be implied. It's going to be outright stated that like one or both boys are conceived in the back of the Impala. And so
God.
if it happens in the van instead,
They got a lot more room.
It's a lot roomier.
It's less gross, I think.
and it's also,
more.
yeah. And
Abigail,
also-
why'd you have to remind me of that?
Don't recommend a PT Cruiser. It's just you're getting smaller and smaller. You want bigger stuff in the car.
Have I ever told
No.
either of you that I owned a PT Cruiser?
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really
Terrible. I
fun.
hated that car so much.
Yeah.
It's like my second or third car.
Traumatic memories in PT Cruisers.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Anywho,
My fun car fact is that apparently my grandfather owned an Impala.
ooh,
That's
I don't
cool.
know what year it was, but I know it was a 60 something Impala, and apparently it was white.
did he
Nice.
hunt a lot?
I don't know. Maybe I should have gone back and asked him.
Maybe that's that question you should ask. Go pray, talk to an angel, get him to
Yeah.
send you back. Easy as that,
NBD.
apparently.
Easy as pie. Haha. Easy as pie.
Since we got kind of on topic with references in this episode, there are, I mean, obviously the whole like Back to the Future homage
Okay.
is sort of there.
But they
we
also
wanna-
reference Star Trek because he says, "Where can I get reception?" And he says, "Oh, maybe it's
Starship Enterprise.
iconic, beautiful."
First off, sassy John Winchester is the only John Winchester I like.
Yes.
Second off, this is the second episode in a row with a Star Trek reference.
Yes.
And Star Trek reference supremacy, like
Mhm.
there will never be another kind of reference I will love more than a Star Trek reference. Anyway, I'm very excited about this.
10 out of 10.
I feel
Yeah.
like you're like as equally feral about this as I was about like the Wedge Antilles reference.
Mhm.
Look, Star Trek is my favorite franchise. Like it's my favorite oldest franchise.
I never would have guessed Astral Spock.
Yeah. What were you saying,
It was-
Noah?
It sort of begs the question, they can go to the past, can they go to the future, and how far into the future can they go? Could they go to the end of time, to the end of, well, okay, but if they don't know if there's an apocalypse coming, then
Well-
their whole timeline is baffling because do they
Noah?
know the future? I just
Right. Do angels know do angels have the ability to go backward? Like how wibbly wobbly is time
Mhm.
in this universe in the sense of like angel interference, you know?
The most non-spoilery way I can describe this, Noah, is be careful what you wish for. And
Okay.
I will leave it at that.
Another reference that I really like, and it's kind of clever and fun, is like Dean obviously has to give a name to John that's not his own name. And so
Yes.
he gives the last name of Van Halen, and it's before Van Halen got big because this is 73 and Van Halen gets big in 78. And I love that because he's able to use like it's so iconic of Dean to use like rock aliases. But in this case, there's no possibility of anyone. This sounds like an alias. And it's
Yeah.
kind of great. I think it's a clever
Oh, you
writing
mean
choice.
like Eddie Van Halen? No, nobody's gonna be saying that because he's
Exactly.
not famous. But then in 5 years, when Van Halen starts blowing up, is John gonna catch that? Is he? I mean, surely
You
he's
gonna
not paying that
remember
much
that?
attention now. But okay, that begs the question: does he recall meeting Dean?
This is
Does
a
he ever
very
look
good
at Dean
question.
as a full-grown adult and be like, "Huh, this motherfucker looks a lot like someone I knew once." You know what?
Well, yeah, like when John comes back to like what explanation does Mary give him for the situation he wakes up in, the fact that her father is dead,
Right next to
Right
him.
next to her.
and also her mother is also gonna. They're also gonna have. Mary's gonna have a lot of explaining to do. The whole ignorance piece here.
Yeah, John's
Uh-huh.
ignorant as fuck just to get laid. Like, bro.
John and Mary do have a very vanilla sort of relationship in this episode. There's not a lot. We don't know a lot about John other than that he's a veteran and kind and sweet, according to Mary.
Apparently.
Which
It's also worth noting that Mary is only 19 at this time. So that's a lot to deal with at that young of an age.
Yeah, it makes sense that she wants to get out of the life. Of someone that young doesn't want to jump right back into saving the world all the time. They don't need that kind of weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And it's implied that she grew up doing this. And we don't get any more information. Like usually when we've met other hunters, we've gotten at least some hint to like they're hunting because their partner was killed, their parent was killed, their child was killed. You know, we know that about Bobby and Ruth. Like we know a lot of that for a lot of other hunters. We don't get any of that for the Campbells. Like they seem to be, they're a full family. You know, there doesn't seem to be anyone missing that we know of. They just are a family of hunters. And when like Samuel says, you know, he makes the joke of like, oh, I used to tell Mary the story of the colt, like as a bedtime story, implies that they've been hunting at least since Mary was young enough to be told bedtime stories, which is a hell of a childhood to grow up in.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was like something that had happened to Samuel, or I wonder if he was raised in this as well. Like I'm really curious how far back this goes with the Campbells.
How generational is hunting?
Yeah. Or how far back does it go? It could go crazy far. Some of these old American families came over on the Mayflower and they trace it back.
Right. How far back does the Campbells go with hunting? It's also like an interesting reveal that hunting didn't originate with John or with the Winchester side of the family. Like from the details we have here, hunting originated on Mary's side of the family. And that's such a big deal of like, oh, Mary knew about hunting.
The first time I watched this episode, I remember being super shocked about that reveal. I was like, wait, what?
Because up until now, she's just been portrayed as a victim and caught in John's crosshairs is kind of what it feels like.
And kind of just caught in the demon's crosshairs before even John.
Yeah.
You know, like John reacts to her death by becoming a hunter, but we think the story starts there, whereas it seems like it obviously doesn't start there. You know, it starts with Mary. It starts at least in part with Mary making this deal.
Yeah.
And like in terms of ignorance, like Mary is ignorant of her own future.
Okay. Yeah. She's very ignorant of her own future, especially.
Which, you know, normally we all are.
Obviously, yeah.
How is she supposed to know, you know?
But when Dean breaks down and he tells her, well, okay, first of all, when she tells him that she doesn't want her kids to grow up in this life.
How heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And Jensen Ackles packs his ass off.
As he does.
Delivers a phenomenal performance and responds so strongly. And then says, November 1983, don't get out of bed. Like, remember. And he makes sure that she remembers. And then it shows that she ignores that warning because she, I mean, at the end of the day, cares about Sam and wants to go help him.
She ignores it or she doesn't remember it?
I'm going to say she ignores it.
I think, honestly, it's funny because I think prior to rewatching this episode, and I don't know if this is because of future stuff that I know or just based on, you know, fandom theory, but in this episode, it's actually not as clear as I thought it was that their memories are wiped, hers or John's. You know, it's not super clear, like, if that's a thing, because that's like a thing that is, you know, theorized, because, you know, you have to come up with a reason why she doesn't seem to remember anything about this, because she doesn't.
Oh, okay.
You have to
never comes back up.
Yeah, you have to come up with a theory. Like, I'm just going based on what we know. I'm trying not to reveal anything for Noah's sake here, but like, obviously, based on this episode, you have to come up with a theory for why she doesn't heed that warning.
I would say it's because she decides in that moment that whatever she can do to help Sam is worth it, whatever happens to her.
Right. That it's a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So then does she keep hunting from John? Because John doesn't seem to know anything at the beginning of
that's true.
His hunting career. Like when she dies, he's totally shocked by it.
Yeah, he had no knowledge of this being some kind of deal that was going to happen here.
So maybe she took the out and set herself up in a protected way, but then
obviously a deal came due.
Yeah.
Well, and she had to have known that was going to happen. Like that deal was going to come due.
Yeah. Had to.
Well, what I think is interesting about it is the way that Yellow Eyes phrases it. He's like, you know, as long as I'm not interrupted.
Yeah. No one gets hurt.
So like, yeah, Mary could have
just stayed in bed.
But she doesn't know what he's going to do to her son. And so that leads to believe that it could be this very conscious choice that even though she remembers, oh shit, like this is the deal, this is coming due, but like he's over my 6-month-old son.
And you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it also,
I think she definitely definitely keeps most of the details of what happened. I mean, okay, but he's dead and comes back. And how does she?
I mean, I guess maybe she explains it to him like he got knocked out or something, something along the lines of
We got super drunk and you just don't remember.
Or there's some kind of violent story that she tells him to explain why her parents are dead, but somehow they've survived.
Look, sweetie, a demon roofied you.
Oh, by the way, demons are real.
Yeah,
which is maybe it's a good segue into the conversation that the Campbells have with Dean about John and about hunting in one of the early scenes, where Samuel kind of scoffs at the idea of John as a civilian, and Mary calls him on it and goes, I see what you're doing. I know how you think of John. I was super struck in this viewing by how much Samuel is what John becomes.
Right? I had never really noticed that before either.
Which is kind of plays into the trope that people find partners that mimic aspects of their parents.
Yeah, and what they've seen in parental dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a carbon copy.
Yeah. It's not that you're looking to marry someone that's exactly like a parent, but it is the idea of if you don't address some of the trauma, you can often run right back into that same pattern. And
exactly,
as much as John seems sweet and kind at this time to Mary, obviously John has the potential to be obsessive and violent and super neglectful. And, he becomes a really, really terrible father to his children when he's confronted with trauma.
Because we also don't know anything about what he goes through when he's in the Vietnam War. We know that he just got back from the war, but we don't know what he saw over there. He could have had a really, really violent experience over there that leaves him with all this trauma that he doesn't know how to process, that's what most of the soldiers that came back from Vietnam had to deal with. And
Vietnam was such a different kind of war in a lot of ways because there was so much public sentiment opposing it. There was so much, it was not the same as if you came back from, say, World War II.
Yeah.
It was not as cut and dry. And so there was a lot of veteran sentiment. There was a lot of anti-war sentiment and a lot of for very, very good reasons. But John being a Vietnam vet specifically means that he's carrying a whole whack of complex stuff before he even gets to meet Mary. And, John is kind of a bit of a blank canvas in this episode, but I see these hints in Mary of what John's going to become and in what Mary kind of puts up with from Samuel, what Deanna experiences from Samuel. Samuel he's rude, he's sexist, he's dismissive to both Mary and Deanna. He's violent, verbally violent towards Mary, Deanna, and Dean.
Yeah. He's not a pleasant dude.
No. Also, the whole Sonny and Cher thing is so funny.
Everyone seems so upset.
Dean's just being his normal, pop culture referencey self. But he's revealing pieces, which is the whole, come back to the whole time thing. How does time work in this universe? Because he's revealing information that hasn't happened yet.
And then someone in the background heard it, reported it. And then that's what started the rumor that went around. And then they were like, no, it's fake. And then they talked about it and they're like, maybe we should break up. And then they actually broke up. So they all broke up because of Dean.
Yeah, Dean's responsible for Sonny and Cher's breakup.
Yeah, listen, I would not be surprised.
It seems to be a curse of the Winchesters that they fuck up things well beyond their scope of influence. So
yeah,
they are the supernatural Forrest Gumps.
I did like the part where Dean said, "What are you, allergic to straight answers, you son of a bitch?" About Cass.
Yes, he is allergic to straight answers. He only has gay answers.
Yes, I need to stand 6 inches from your face
to deliver information.
One phrase.
And they just look at each other. You're like, there is so much charge in this situation. It's also so interesting. The angels this is the first real indication we got that the angels are also ignorant of something.
Yeah,
angels
they don't know everything about what's going on.
Which is sort of interesting when you think about the idea that the angels are ultimately answered to God, and which then calls into question, does God know what Azazel's plans for Sam are? and he just hasn't told the angels. Like,
And that
what-
leads you to believe, like, God, I feel like should generally know that kind of thing.
so then is he withholding that information from the, like, what is,
Yeah, there's a lot of rules here that they aren't talking about that seem to be broken. If it it really depends on what they're pulling from, because they're really pulling from a lot of Christianity at this point, and
Mhm.
those rules dictate that God should know what's going on and can stop. But we haven't seen God yet. We barely have come to terms with the fact that he exists. So
Yeah.
like,
and the
Yeah.
only actual like proof, quote unquote, that we have that he exists is that the angels say he does.
Yeah.
And the angels are manipulative as fuck. Like already in this episode, they manipulate Dean into this situation. Like even if their intentions are, again, quote unquote, good, they still throw Dean into a situation, blatantly lie to him for their own.
Doesn't the boy have enough trauma? Like, good God.
yeah, for real. He's got to go back and watch his grandparents die and then his dad die
Again.
Which,
again.
oh, can we talk about Deanna? She's
Oh.
He's so sweet.
I wanted
Listen.
more of Deanna. As much as I like wanted less of Samuel, I wanted more of Deanna.
But it
Me
was really
too.
cool to say Samuel and Deanna. That was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
got that
It's
Samuel
such a-
and Deanna.
I
Sam and Dean.
love the reveal of, again, to go with like we've talked about in the past about like Dean being mother coded in a lot of ways and
Yes.
female coded in a lot of ways in how he's presented on the show, in a number of different situations. But now we're really getting him being Mary coded
Mhm.
and being
Uh-huh.
and like the fact that he's named after his grandmother
Mhm.
is it just lends to that. Like gender stuff is really interesting,
Yeah, it gives a lot more credence to the trans teen theory.
right?
It
Right?
does.
Like-
Right?
I can see it. I can see it. If we say the story is told from a perspective at the end, then it would be through the lens of how they decide in at some point. So yeah, it would obviously be Dean. And so then yeah, I follow. I track.
Yeah.
I like it. That's why they don't recognize him as well. He doesn't look quite okay. Yeah.
He wouldn't. Yeah. That
Mhm.
also could be why maybe if even if John would technically remember, he wouldn't put those pieces together.
Because when he came back to life, he had his body as he felt, not
Yes, exactly.
as they were before. Mhm.
Ooh, fascinating
I love
stuff.
that theory
Fascinating
so much.
stuff. Oh,
then if
I'm
they-
all for that.
We'd have to pay close attention to the next time that, okay, because I'm assuming at some point they interact with John again. So the next time that they interact with John, we'd have to pay attention to how he reacts to Dean in that version.
Well, you'll have to wait and see if that's a thing that happens. Yeah.
We're almost there. We're making it.
Also on Deanna, like we don't see her hunting in the same way that like we see Samuel and Mary hunting, but I also believe she's a hunter. Like
Yes.
as strong a person as she is. Also, when she cuts that banana up, like
Yo.
the knife
She
work
went
there.
so hard.
Wow. Wow.
I was like, wait, what? I thought that was like a big reveal, the way the camera. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then she comes out with the bowl of fruit salad, and you're like, weird way of showing us that you're really good at using a knife, but I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
Yeah. She
And,
clearly is the one that trained Mary on all of her knife work.
Yeah.
One kind of final note on Mary, like around the whole repeating of family patterns that I think we see in this episode is like we see Mary as this kid who just like wants to get out and like is incredibly trapped in her family's life, particularly her father's like plans for her as a hunter, which is very much reminiscent of like John's plans for his kids, in season 1 particularly. And unfortunately, Mary is running straight from one trap into another.
Ugh.
And that's just like, it's just Mary's story is so
Gut-wrenching.
tragic because we know how it ends and we get this like hope that maybe it can change in this episode, and it doesn't. It can't.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
Okay, one last note I had about ignorance is that, okay, it seems to be that the whole reason that Yellow Eyes goes after Mary is because of the conversation that Dean has with his grandpa, who's possessed by Yellow Eyes, talking about how he came back to make sure, like he tells him that he's from the future, and that whole reveal and saying that he has to make sure that he thinks this is where Yellow Eyes catches her scent, which is a weird, terrible way of putting it, but
Oh,
like,
I
okay.
hate it.
But he's worried that that's what sets him off. But then it's the whole fact that he tells him, hey, I came from the future to stop you because you killed my mom. And yeah, here you go. Go kill my mom. basically gives him the whole plan, the whole layout right there. So
I never really thought about it like that.
if he hadn't gone back, maybe things would have changed. I mean, things would have changed for sure if Dean hadn't gone because of the car. But now it's just even more significant. Mary might still be alive. I mean, everything would be significantly different.
Yeah, and Dean walks like right into that. Like not through no fault of his own. He walks into making this situation what it is, which is so interesting from a time perspective. It's most of this stuff doesn't happen the same way if he's not there.
Yeah.
But also it's super fascinating, and it's something that hopefully we'll come back to as we maybe see some more of that ripple effect. And we see now, now we know the angels can do that, but also that they use it for very specific purposes. The angels as an entity are very interesting at this point in the show.
Super interesting. I'm all there for it.
They're very, very mysterious up until this point.
Oh, and at the end, like they cast this conversation with Dean about, we don't know what's happening with Sam. We need to find, like, we don't know what's happening with Sam.
I basically totally called it that. That's why they brought him back so Dean can talk Sam down.
Yes, when you said that, I was like, oh, yes, you were right on the money.
Good.
Like
I gotta say, your prediction skills are getting a little uncanny.
Except for the backflips. God damn, no backflips this episode.
No backflips. Episodes without a backflip.
400.
Well, that moves us right along. So we're going to move into our going meta section where we are tracking lore, representation, behind the scenes trivia, and anything else fun that we couldn't fit into the episode discussion. We'll start with our representation check. So this includes things like the Bechdel test, instances of presentations of gender, of sexuality, of relationship dynamics, of culture and race, and, that whole...
all of the above.
Spectrum, if you will.
We had a definitely nasty reference from the grandpa, Samuel, saying it's just a female time of the month kind of thing, which is
he's
unnecessary.
So gross.
The worst. Yeah. He's the worst. He's every terrible hunter. There's a lot of... Yeah. Samuel is so misogynistic towards both Mary and Deanna.
Yeah, I don't know who put it in the document, but like, oh man, I hate Samuel Campbell. I'm definitely team that guy needs an entire check of his character and morality.
Oh, yeah.
It's the whole like hunters positioned as heroes in this show. And I love when the show then shows us hunters that are actually undeniably like not good people.
Yeah.
Like they're not people who act well. And it's more scary than anything else that they're hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had that with like even characters like Gordon, where we're like, you are a fascinating character, but you are also like objectively hunting makes you a worse person.
Yeah.
It allows all of your worst instincts to come out.
It's crazy too when you think about that, because it's supposed to like saving people, hunting things. Like you'd think that this would be a morally sound group of individuals that, are out here trying to save people. And there are so many of them that are just really misogynistic, sexist, and just
trauma, because that's why people become hunters, because of trauma, and trauma does not make you.
It really just goes to show that even with the really cool motto, like to serve and protect, doesn't always follow through.
Right? Especially if the actual reason you're doing the thing that sounds heroic is because of your own unaddressed trauma. You're doing it because as a reaction to things you've experienced, not because you've actually done the work to be a healthy, emotionally stable person.
Looking at you, Sam Campbell.
Well, that kind of makes me wonder with Dean and Sam, is that why the two of them are such good hunters? Because they're both kind of always focused on the other. Like Dean is always so worried about trying to protect Sam, and Sam is so worried about trying to protect Dean.
It keeps them in check.
Yeah, they get themselves out of their own way in a way that a lot of other hunters don't seem able to do, especially hunters like Samuel, because he's sitting here with the whole, we work alone, I don't trust other people. Like, sir.
Which is, also in terms of Samuel is John coded hilariously because Samuel's not related to John at all. But like John's whole like isolating himself and his kids from the hunting community is so indicative of Samuel.
Yeah. But I do in terms of like the representation of women and gender specifically, Mary is so good.
I love Mary.
Like Mary makes me so happy.
We get to know why she's the way she is.
It makes me glad that we didn't get Mary until this season, because I feel like if we had gotten Hunter Mary in season 1, she would have had like zero agency. Like, I feel like the writers, even though they're still including a lot of these like misogynistic sort of phrases and things, like they have at least gotten to a point where they recognize that like we don't want women characters that are just like ditzy one-offs who get murdered. They give her some depth.
I mean, she's very like, and this is again, I'm going to give credit to, I think it's Beth who I was having this conversation with. We were talking about the Winchesters specifically, but it applies here as well. That Mary's very Buffy-esque in terms of like characterization. Like that's another female hunter character that Mary reminds me of a lot. And also hilariously, she's a like punch first, ask questions later kind of character, like very fitting for any parent of 7 Deans. When she first confronts Dean, she's like, I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm just going to like try and
beat
the crap out of you.
Damn.
Like honestly, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, this is where we get a really clear, like kind of the first clear example of how Mary coded Dean is. And I enjoy that a great deal.
Very much so.
Which honestly is also cool because we get that conversation from Mary where she's like, I just want to get out. I just want to be safe. And so much of like Dean, we've talked about how that's there for him, but he also doesn't express that very often. You know, he's not like, Sam is the one that had said throughout his childhood, I don't want to be a hunter. Dean like followed that path all the way up to adulthood and doesn't start telling us doesn't start communicating that would rather not hunt. And he does it in really subtle ways. So it's cool to see Mary like explicitly say that. And you see Dean's like recognition of himself in Mary.
Yeah. But we still don't pass the Bechdel test.
No, unfortunately. We do have a fairly small cast in this episode, but we could have more, we could have more women in some of the
I would have loved to have
roles.
seen some Deanna and Mary scenes. Like that would have made me really happy.
Show us
but
that
we can't
dynamic.
have nice things.
Because Deanna is like underserved in this episode.
Absolutely.
Especially as an older female character too. We don't have enough female characters in the show. We have even less older female characters.
Time for our weekly Where the Fuck is Ellen? Because goddamn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also Missouri, to be fair.
Thank you.
Also Missouri.
Yeah.
Where did
Missouri
both of them
mostly, go? I have never forgiven them for not having her as like a Bobby level recurring character.
It makes sense. She's fucking psychic.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be helpful.
Yeah, right.
You could have gone to Missouri when you came back from Hell, Dean. You could have gone to Missouri to be like, how do I get out? Like, I know Pamela is also a psychic, but why didn't you go to Missouri?
Yeah.
Well, I think the only reason is, doesn't Bobby, he says a line when they go to see Pamela about how she's the best psychic in the state. So it might have just been a matter of proximity. They were like, oh, who's a psychic that we can get to quickly because this is a really weird, desperate situation.
Yeah, but you do think... Yeah,
that's me just trying to justify it, but but also like they know Missouri and she knows more of their history, so like it does make more sense. I'm trying to come up with the reason why they yada that one,
which is fair.
Lazy writing.
Yeah. The one other thing I think it's important to mention is that in the whole conversation between Dean and Azazel, Azazel has this whole like line, this whole spiel about like how he chose the children, you know, and like he uses the line, they're ideal breeders, which is just fucking disgusting and racist. And it's just bad. It's just like super bad. And like, obviously it's Azazel, like it's a character we know is like a villain, but it still just like has these undertones of like really nasty, kind of unnecessary.
I feel like they brought him back for this one episode, right? And he's been gone for so long that they were like, I think they stepped it up a notch to be like, remember how nasty he was? So they made him even nastier because he was younger then too. I mean,
yeah, he's a demon.
Yeah, demons.
But it's earlier in his storyline.
Yeah, he's earlier in this rebellion storyline that he's going on.
Yeah, and he's like building the setting up for his army at this point. It's, you know, this is still yeah, it's still like 30 plus years from when the special children are going to show up in season 2. But yeah, it's very eugenic. It's just, it's bad. It's bad.
Very bad.
Has overtones that are like deeply problems.
And maybe this slide just right into lore, because so get this, he was talking about his plan and how his end game isn't where Dean's at. Dean was like, yeah, I already killed you. Your end game's done. And he's like, oh no, that wasn't it. Terrifying to
implying that it doesn't matter that Dean kills him later.
Yeah,
Which
he's like, oh, okay,
is just
cool.
a spit in the face.
Because Dean's looking at him and he's looking right back, trying to say, hey, yeah, I killed you. Look into my eyes and see how serious I am.
I think at the end of the day, I win. And Azazel's like, you think you've won.
And it's my past. So it already happened. But no, they have not won. There's still
something still up with Sam.
Still something brewing.
Yeah, something's still up with Sam, and that is just like looming. Like Sam's not in this episode, but like ultimately this episode revolves around what is up with Sam.
Yeah, it's hinted at so much.
There's also like Mary and the Campbells know about demons and demon deals, which is interesting because like when we meet Sam and Dean, they don't meet a demon. They meet a demon in like the 4th episode. But that's a very specific kind of demon. They don't like meet the kind of demons that we are used to now on the show until the end of season 1. And they don't know jack shit about demons until Bobby teaches them.
Yeah. So
the fact that Mary and Samuel like knew about demons in the 70s is just interesting lore.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Like they're deep into hunting if they know about demons.
What great timing that we're having this episode come out this week when the Winchesters is right around the corner about to kick off. This episode exclusively deals with that time period and Mary and John meeting. And now they're about to whole retcon a lot of this, right?
I mean,
we don't know yet.
Because it hasn't started. But I'm assuming based off of the trailer and certain information that's released that they're going to change a whole lot about Mary and John's origin and the fact that John knows nothing about hunting. I'd love another view of this scene with the car. It'd be cool to have another perspective where Dean is back in the past and something else that happened back then or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah. It's I mean, we can't say too much without spoiling other stuff for you, Noah, but like the Winchesters is set a year before this happens, which is very interesting timing. If you know, and we're at this point, the Winchesters is not airing yet. We don't know what they're going to do to make it work with canon and how much they're going to retcon, or how much they're going to, write themselves into retconning. And so we don't really know.
Especially if they want their show to go longer than one season. If they're only sending it 1 year back, that's not a lot of time.
They're going to hit this event. So I'm interested if we are going to end up seeing some version of this event on the Winchesters.
Because Jensen's already involved, so might as well just use them, right?
And Jensen has said that they are trying to play with and match canon in interesting ways. Like, I don't remember the exact phrase he used, but he talked about how he's like, we're not throwing canon out the window, basically is what he said.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's Supernatural. They're not always great at following their own canon.
Like the lost canon jar would like a word.
It's overflowing at this point, and we're only in season 4.
Exactly.
And we're still in the Kripke era, which was still run by like one showrunner. We haven't changed showrunners yet.
That's true. Season 5 is where he ends.
End of season 5,
you wait, Noah. Just you friggin' wait.
Yeah. There's not really anything else we can share in terms of like lost canon. There is some other things in here, but there's not really any that we can share without massively spoiling things for Noah. So we won't do that. But since this is not about the Winchesters, but if you do want to hear more of our thoughts on the Winchesters as that story unfolds, that show is beginning to air in about a week. And Elayna and I, along with our friend Beth from Driver Picks the Podcast and our friend KJ from Supernatural Opinions Podcast, are doing a live watch through of the Winchesters every week. That show is going to be called Wayward Parents. And if you are interested, we have a bunch of bonus episodes, preview episodes. We're putting out a bingo predictions episode this week. You can follow that. We'll put the links in the description, but if you're interested in Winchester's content, we will be doing a lot of that on that show, not on this show, because we don't want to spoil everything.
Yeah, we've got to keep it a little bit separate, because if I start watching that show, there's going to be questions I have that can't be answered until season like 9 and 10 of this one. So
yeah, but
be a whole thing.
We're really excited about that though.
Yeah. So that's just a little note for all of you listening. If you want to check that out, we will be airing our first official episode as soon as the show airs. So
Woo-hoo. I can't wait to encourage it, but not listen. Encourage it from the sidelines.
Yeah.
We can't wait to tell everyone who can listen to go listen.
Hey guys, if you want to check out my podcast, there's also this other one, but I can't listen to it. I don't know how it goes, but I'm
Can't
sure it's
verify
great.
the quality at all.
I'm confident it's phenomenal. Go check it out.
But we did do actually a mini episode on In the Beginning, on that show where we talk specifically about its impact on the Winchester storyline. So if you want more of a full discussion on that, that episode is already live and on that show. So you can check that out.
Yeah.
Links in the show notes below.
As always. I had one little behind the scenes pop culture-y thing that I did want to include just because I think it's a really delightful nod, because we mentioned already, we were talking about like DeLoreans and how it's very Back to the Future-y, but I specifically wanted to note the diner scene when, you hear, "Hey, Winchester," like that is a very specific shot for shot sort of nod to the movie Back to the Future, in which Marty goes in and like is sitting next to his dad. And I just really enjoy how much the show writers and runners were just like, yeah, we're just going to lean fully into this. And I think it was a really nice touch.
I like that you can see it coming. They give you enough visual cues in the scene leading up to it that you can figure out that like, oh, Dean's gone back in time. And then as soon as he walks into the diner and he sits down, you go, oh, I think I know what bit they're about to do. And then you can easily draw the line to that's probably John. And it's just very satisfying.
Yeah,
honestly,
that's why I just wanted to mention it to close this out for going meta, because it is an extraordinarily meta moment.
How long do you think it took Dean to realize that that's what happened? Do you think because obviously he thought back on this whole adventure many times trying to figure out what he missed.
I think
he immediately recognized that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I think he hates Back to the Future after this point, unfortunately. I think that I think this experience ruins that movie for him.
Absolutely.
Which is very sad.
Bummer. Thanks for saving the world, though.
Well, they haven't done that yet. So.
Well, yeah.
We'll see.
So it's now time for our last and favorite part of every episode, which is our character blessings. Does anyone have any?
Dare I say it?
No.
Do I want to
take it back? You can't bless him.
You can do it. Do it. This is what blessings is for. It's for challenging ourselves.
It better be less than 15 words.
And you can bless a character that fucks up a lot and that we don't ultimately like.
Well, wow.
Yeah. So you know what? This is a one and done, folks.
Oh my God.
I am never going to bless this bitch again.
Punch the card and throw it away. You're good.
But I would like to bless John.
Whoa. Notorious anti-John podcast. Bless John. That's the headline on this episode.
Yeah.
Alert. Go tell your friends.
Listen, it's because I think in this episode, before everything with their relationship and Mary's parents, before it all goes to shit, I would like to believe in the John that Mary believes in. Mary loves him for a reason. And she, I think, is probably the only person that he lets see this sweet and kind sort of side to him. And I think it's really sad that whatever his trauma is, because we really
the choices he makes past this.
Yeah, we really don't know a lot about John's upbringing and up to this point, there's a lot of things we don't know about him, but we know that he very much loves Mary. And I think it's really sad knowing the choices that he's going to make and knowing what a villain he's going to become and just kind of seeing him in this moment when he's not yet. And so I kind of, in a weird way, I want to bless the John that Mary fell in love with because I think it's unfortunate that he doesn't last very long.
I like that what you said there, because I think it goes back to what we believe about blessings and also a perspective of the show that focuses so much on free will, because, we're not looking at characters and being like, they have no opportunity to change. The thing about John is that ultimately the change that happens is all downhill from here. And that's what's traumatic about John. And that's why we don't like him. And that's why we're notoriously hard on him.
Yeah. He has the same amount of free will as Sam, as Dean, as Cass, as anybody
as Bobby,
in the show. and he makes his bed, and it's a mess, and it's sad because you knowing that he could have chosen another way and he didn't.
Which in some ways makes our criticisms of him all the more valid and important, because he makes those choices and other people make much, much better ones, despite their similar levels of trauma.
So that's my controversial blessing for the week. Who do y'all have?
Well done. I'm going to bless Mary, because I think she is very powerful in this episode and is a lot more powerful than people around her give her credit for, and needs to be allowed the freedom to use that power and protect the people that she loves. I can't wait to see more of her. Can't wait to see where she goes in the next 10 to 15 years.
I think this gives her character so much more depth, and I love that.
I adore it.
I love Mary as a character. Like, I love her, and I love
kicked ass.
Mm-hmm.
She did.
Kicked Dean's ass, and that was okay. Damn.
Respect.
One episode, we've got one interaction with them, and she's already a better parent than John.
Yeah.
Even in a situation where she doesn't know she's his parent.
Yep.
Do you think she figures it out at the end? There's no way, right? He tells her a future date, and immediately after being shell-shocked that she said, I don't want my kids being raised like this, tells her a future date to avoid.
I don't know. I don't think she knows.
All she knows, she probably knows that Dean's intel is coming from his dad's quote unquote psychic abilities, which is what the line Dean gives to Samuel at the beginning before he tells Samuel. He says, John's my dad was psychic. He could see the future. So if she's maybe only operating off of that, she's got no reason to believe Dean's anything else other than just a hunter with weird information about the future.
Fair, because there's a big difference between believing that spirits and ghosts are a thing and believing that they can time travel.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. Not only did Cass send Dean back, but Cass then went back and talked to Dean in the past.
Yeah.
And was that the same Cass that was up front, or was that an earlier version of Cass that knew it was going to happen and just went over there and talked to him?
And Mary's going to have to be totally confused, because she looks up and Dean's gone. The car is there. Dean's never going to come back for the car, that random car that he jacked.
Hot wired.
She's never going to have a good explanation for this. And she doesn't have enough information to figure it out, because the only person that has that information is Samuel.
And he's dead.
When he's being possessed by Azazel, and he's dead.
But Abigail, who would you like to bless? I'm really curious who you have for this week.
I am going to take my opportunity and dual bless Dean and Deanna.
There we go.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew
it. Because I can't pick, and because I want to bless them for, I think in some ways similar things. Like, they're both very powerless in this situation. They both get their agency stripped from them a whole ton. Neither of them were able to make any change. Both of them have the opportunity to try and stop this. Like, she has the moment where she tries to get the jump on Azazel, and so does he. And they're both, it's futile. And she doesn't walk out of this alive. First, she sees her husband killed, and then she immediately is killed herself. And it's just, I think the blessing I have is for having your agency taken away when you're really trying to exercise your free will, because she's really trying and he's really trying. And that makes it all the more devastating when things happen that are outside of your control. And I wanted to bless, and I wanted to bless them for even those two for not getting the chance to actually connect. He didn't get the chance to talk to his namesake, or the person he was named after. She didn't ever get to Samuel gets to know that it's his grandson, but she doesn't ever get to know that Dean's her grandson. And that's really sad. Yeah.
Blessings to her.
Mm-hmm.
Blessings to all. Well, with those lovely blessings, that brings us to the end of the episode. Make sure you are all subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to share our show with your friends.
You can find links to our social media and join our Discord server through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com. Particularly, our Discord is where we are building listener community. So if you'd like to make friends or talk to any of us about the episodes, you can come find us there.
Be sure to ride along with us next week as we discuss episode 4, Metamorphosis through the Theme of Tolerance.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.